Some time ago, I sat down with someone. I got asked a series of questions as it concerns the healthcare situation in Nigeria and the systems down there and what ought to be done and what wasn't done right and what we needed to do as a people and what we weren't doing as a people. I gave my honest answer. I gave a few answers here and there. I tried to answer the questions as honestly and as informed as I was at the time. I think that was last year or 2 years ago, most likely last year. So I will be sharing the video down here. They were recorded in 3 parts, I guess. We couldn't find the last part, so we have 2 parts, and the last part would also make up for the third part. Maybe at the end of we posting the first 2 parts, I would get to make a third part to complete the conversations in and about the concerns that ought to be raised in the series. It's about our healthcare system. It's about the healthcare system that your father, my mother, your brothers and sisters get to rely on to survive, and the one they get to hope on, hoping that their life, when tomorrow comes, will still be saved by such hospitals, such institutions, such events, and such places. It's a very, very devastating thing to talk about, to think about even the Nigerian healthcare system. And I hope in the end we come to appreciate the importance of health and how it goes on to bring wealth in the world and what we shouldn't be doing and how we should move forward and how we shouldn't move forward. In and about these are the things I hope we come to learn now into the future. I hope you come to enjoy this particular series, and I hope you come to share your ideas. The video isn't that bright, but I think you should pay more attention to the video, or the message rather, than the quality. And I hope we come to find it interesting in the long run.
Can you describe the current state of healthcare infrastructure in Nigeria?
The current state of healthcare infrastructure in Nigeria is bad. It needs redemption, it needs helping, it needs salvation, it needs urgent attention, and the politicians are not doing the much needed. The boards of directors seem to be starved of ideas, and we're in a very bad situation. People die every day. People die of treatable diseases. People die of treatable infections. People die of stuff that are so sad to even talk about. Women still die in their numbers from maternal mortality rate. Infants still die before age 5. Youths still suffer the lack of basic amenities. So the current infrastructural development on the health sector in my country is very bad, and it needs salvation, and leaders have to rise up to the task of leadership and then think of solutions to these problems, because we're losing a lot. We're losing people, we're losing children, we're losing family members, we're losing relatives, we're losing our supposed enemies, we're losing our brothers across boards for reasons not worth mentioning, for very poor reasons, because of poor policies and weak priorities set by our politicians and all that. Even in the Federal Capital Territory, healthcare is still very expensive and very inaccessible for the normal man. That's why you see our politicians and our leaders go on serious health tourism across the world and across the continent. The last president we had, President Muhammadu Buhari, spent pretty much of his time abroad going for tourism. Same thing with our current president. um, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Same thing with a whole lot of other politicians. And the last president who died while serving the country died abroad, sick. They should be made to dance to the rhythm of the drums they have been playing for us as mere citizens, and this is the only way we can go. If people can still not access healthcare in the metropolitan cities and all that, talk more of the rural areas. We are short of manpower and we are sitting on a keg of gunpowder and we seem not to be doing much because human lives in Nigeria seems to be like digits of number on a screen, and it's so bad. And I want this to change, and that's why I'm speaking out.
How do the shortages of medical equipment and facilities affect patient care?
The shortage of medical facilities in the continent, the shortage of medical facilities in the country has led to the decay of the health sector and the death of health in my part of the world, which is Nigerian. It needs serious attention. It needs to be boosted. We need all what we can get as a people to put into place. We need to beef up our educational sector. We need to beef our economic sector. We need to beef our economy. We need to strengthen our GDP. We need to boost our agriculture. These are the only ways and leading in the right direction that we as a people can tend to grow. The money for the oil has to go in the right direction. The lease with Shell as a company has to be terminated if possible, because it doesn't make sense that they have to drill the oil for 100 years and the country is just going to die. We are an oil producing country, but we don't have a whole lot to talk about. The little money we get to borrow, the little money we see as a country is still being laundered and exploited and wasted by our politicians and our leaders who don't have the will of the people at heart, and it's disturbing.
How does underfunding of healthcare impact service delivery in Nigeria?
The underfunding of the healthcare affects service delivery in many ways, because it's a service rendered to the people of the country that has come to be called Nigeria. So it needs adequate funding, and at the moment we're not getting enough funding from this particular angle, and it doesn't look good on the people. If the sector is getting adequate funding from the people, if the sector is getting adequate funding from the government, and the government is also advocating for policies that will make for private investors to invest in this particular sector, which is very important to the growth of humanity and for the prevention of the extinction of a people. Our politicians won't be going for medical tourism across the world and dying in different places only for the country to look like a cemetery for them. They would be very much around and then get their treatments within. This is not to say we don't have healthcare systems that can, stand the test of the 21st century. I'm just saying, at the moment, the healthcare system is not where it's supposed to be. And our leaders are not making the necessary policies that would aid investment in this place, both from the government angle and from private sector, to beef up this sector, because this sector is very, very important. The current situation of things and the underfunding of this sector makes it possible to defy that particular saying that health is wealth. It can pass to say that Nigerians are not wealthy, at least in the basic sense, because they are not healthy. The life expectancy of the country of men and women in the country is so sad and so low, and people die of treatable diseases. People die because of They don't get adequate attention from doctors and nurses, and there's a shortage also of brain power and manpower also, because nurses and doctors are leaving the country and they're going to get greener pastures in places that favor them. They are not unpatriotic. They're just doing what ordinarily we in the course of evolution have done, try to survive. And not just that, we in Nigeria try to survive against all odds. And it's very, very bad, and it's very, very sad. And people die without even being remembered. People who were children to parents, parents who were fathers and mothers to children, and the world is just being turned upside down, and the street seems to be so peaceful, and there seems to be no revolution anytime soon. And I pray there should be a revolution in the right sense of the word, not a revolution as a revolt. But even as a revolt, it can come either way, either a revolution or a revolt, because this won't last for too long. The people will get tired at a point, and probably there will be a disintegration or a breakdown of law and order in the country. And I don't want the country to get to that particular point. I call on politicians and our leaders and policymakers and our thought and think tanks to come to really think about ways to go about solving this problem, because man, if it has not happened to you, you would not know. I lost my grandfather at a point where doctors were on strike and they couldn't admit new patients at a national hospital in Abuja. This is Abuja we're talking about. And I'm talking about last year, 2023. I'm not talking about something that happened in the distant past. My granddad died last year of a situation that could have been prevented, and his life prolonged for as much as we could have had. But we lost him because doctors were on strike, demanding that policy should be made that will favor them who decides to stay back in the country. And it's a whole lot. And this should change.
What are the consequences of not meeting the Abuja Declaration's budget allocation for healthcare?
It means people are just definitely going to die. If the Abuja a healthcare allocation budget for the year is not met, it means it's not met, and it's sad. And the declaration is a nice one, but if it's not been met, it means it's underfunded, and whosoever is taking the money, whosoever is siphoning the funds, whosoever is supposed to make that happen and it's not making it happen, should be fired. And our politicians have just proven to show that they are incompetent, they are not supposed to be where they are, and we should not be sympathetic with people who want to see that the country doesn't grow. And if I employ somebody and the person is underserving why I employ the person, I won't say because he's my friend or he's my brother or he's my friend's son, then I keep him in the business. I fire him, and that's what I want us to do as a country, as a continent, as global citizens all over the world. If somebody is underserving, if a politician is underserving, if a leader is under-delivering, he should be fired. And he can be given a second chance, but not a second chance out of pity, a second chance out of justifiable reasons that this guy, this lady can, actually do what he ought to do, and not out of sympathy and out of tribalism, out of nepotism, or out of family ties and relationships and all that. That's bullshit, and that shouldn't be encouraged. We should call guys to action, and they should act how they are meant to act. And if they fail to do so, they get kicked out of office. Until we get there, and until we see that people get to be held accountable for their deeds and misdeeds, there's no going forward. It's so funny in Nigeria that the law is too weak to catch the strong and too strong to catch the weak. Who are the strong? The strong are the political guys, the elites, and friends and family members of these people. And who are the weak that the law is so strong to catch? My mother, my late father, my uncles, my aunties, my friends, the parents of my friends, the family members of my friends who were born in in low places. I was born in Boki. I grew up there, and I know what I'm talking about. I can't remember the last time I got to see a doctor in the health center in Okonde. Okonde is where I grew up. Okonde is where I spent pretty much my life. And I remember how many times my sister and Kere would be sick, and we would take her to the maternity there. It's even a maternity. It's the healthcare system and the healthcare center, and she wouldn't get adequate medical treatment, and they would tell us the doctor is coming, the doctor is coming. The few doctors that were actually in the healthcare center in Okonde were probably corps members who came for their national youth service, and then they were pretty much also engaged in private hospitals. And the doctor that was around that time was Dr. Ezedani. Used to call him Meldan. He was the one that pretty much was saving lives of people in the whole of that axis. And Okonde is seen like the real township of Bokiluku government area in Cross River State. And up until now, as we speak, the healthcare center is just there. It's just there. There's almost nothing really going on there. And there are the private hospitals. There's Omega Hospital now. There's Sampet. There's Fountain of Life. But beyond this, nothing really seemed to be seriously working. And it's a call for the government to really look at this. We are over 220 million as a people, and we don't have enough facilities to cater for these people. Because of things I still don't understand, and it baffles me, and it leaves me thinking as to whether we are real human beings in Nigeria or animals. And because only animals would not behave this way as Nigerian politicians get to behave, and as we also get to behave as followers. And I think we can do better as a country, we can do better as a people. And this is not me insulting anybody, but this is just me spitting out and saying things how they are. And these also have to change.
How is the shortage of healthcare professionals, particularly doctors, affecting healthcare services?
The shortage of doctors, nurses, and healthcare personnel and workers leaves the country on top of a time bomb. And it's so sad that doctors have to leave the country for greener pastures where actually there is enough work on ground to do. The average Nigerian is sick. If he's not sick of sitting in a bus that is so tight with 5-6 persons on a particular row, where a row in a bus where can ordinarily take 3 persons will be taking 5 to 6 persons in Nigeria, and then they are traveling for as far as 12, 13 hours, 14 hours, and it doesn't make sense. This affects the person physiological posture and all that. The person is stressed, the person is strained, the person goes to the market, doesn't really have the necessary required amount of funds to fully fund his or her own healthy lifestyle. It's a problem. There's inadequate transport system, there's inadequate electricity, and then there's inadequate supply of drinkable water and unhealthy kind of living, and all this gets to affect the way the person or the people in Nigeria get to live and actually are, and it affects them. And the healthcare personnel that leave the country seeking for greener pastures abroad after being trained in the country, for me it doesn't make sense. They can stay back, but the policies have to be augmented. Nobody ordinarily wants to leave and forget the ties of loved ones, family members, friends, the lives lived, the many decades of experience gathered just to gather themselves into a small suitcase and then get shoved out of the continent looking for greener pastures, and getting to face the loneliness, getting to face the seeming discrimination, and the whole idea of always remembering that you're a stranger and then the whole idea of also having double standards of living, living in Nigeria or living abroad and at the same time having family ties back in the country. And so the person is always stressed by answering calls of the new country he finds himself and also answering the calls and messages and communication gap left across the continent and the Sahara and all that. So I think most doctors and nurses won't leave if what they are going to look for outside is being provided for them within the same landscape they find themselves. If things are provided that these things are the same, and then a doctor still decides that he wants to leave, then he's not being compelled now to leave. He's choosing freely to leave. It's not the escaping most persons do. Most people tend to escape out of the country. Most people tend to escape out of the continent because of the hostile policies and the poor decision making of our leaders and our philosophers, and how we've also repeatedly refused to listen to poets and writers, but then predominantly listen to politicians. And it's so sad. So those actually leaving the country, though they are doing the country a disfavor, but you won't blame them because they need to survive. What if they stay and then they die? They can't just stay and stay in a messed up place where they have to cater for their family, they have to cater for their friends and loved ones. They have to also live good life, but they leave because the human instinct of survival tells them to leave because they had the chance to leave. Dele Farotimi said, a Nigerian who has the means of leaving the country and refuse to leave the country, even when every means is within his or her disposal, is insane. And that's the truth. But at the same time, everybody must not leave, because if everybody leaves, my mother is still in Nigeria, my siblings are still in Nigeria, who become the doctor and the nurses who will take care of them? We have to look for a way out, and the only way out is to make what these people are going to look for out there be accessible to them here, so that they're not asking for much. Most of these persons just want basic amenities like running water, good schools for their kids to attend, a secure environment for them to walk around without anybody being afraid of getting killed, basic transport system like railway stations, like trams, like metros, like good public transport system that are always there on time, like GPS that actually takes you to the actual location, not some of the Nigerian GPS system that takes you to a different location when you're actually supposed to be in a different place, and hospitals that work, churches that are not fanatical, religious practices that are human inclusive and human oriented, rather than being heretical and being against the whole idea of humans actually living, shrines that uphold culture, mosques that preach peace and not violence, and stuff like that. These are the things these doctors and nurses who live, as well as the engineers and the accountants and whosoever, the philosophers, the economists who get to leave the continent are doing. And it is to our disfavor that people are living en masse. It doesn't do us good. It only empowers the next country. It only empowers the countries these people get to go to, because their manpower is beefed up and ours is draining and it's going down, and nobody's coming to save us. We are the ones going to save ourselves, and until we do that, we labor in vain, and this too has to change.
What steps are being taken to address the issue of brain drain in the medical field?
Almost nothing is done to beef up the issue of brain drain in the medical field in the country, because we still see, as we move on daily, we see policies that want people to leave. When the country is having an inflation, when as at January the inflation had risen to about 29% in the last how many years, and It doesn't look good on any country. When you can actually buy something with a lesser amount of money, but you have to use a large chunk of money to buy what you can buy with a little amount of money, it sends shivers into the spine of people. As at the time of having this conversation, Nigerians are barely surviving. Nigerians are struggling to eat. Nigerians are struggling to remain human and to remain sane. And it doesn't speak well of any country that wants its people to grow. It doesn't speak well of any country that wants to see itself succeed. And we have to build more schools, we have to build more specialized institutes, we have to fund research, we have to fund medical research, we have to fund philosophical and ethical research centers that will tell us as to the drugs we have to produce. We have to build more pharmaceutical industries and companies that would not just produce drugs for gain, but will produce drugs that will actually meet the demands of the people while abiding by ethical standards. I don't really see how much we are doing in these sectors. We're just there as a country, and it's so sick and it's so sad and it's so sickening and it's so disappointing that in the 21st century we're having conversations as to basic healthcare system. We're still here to involve technology in our healthcare system in many ways. We're still struggling with the basic apparatus and the basic tools and the basic facilities that can actually cater for the people. We are over 220 million, for Christ's sake, and we need help, and we are not making anything in the right direction that points to the fact that we are beefing our health sector. We need more school of nursing, we need more medical schools, we need more biologists, we need more lab scientists, we need more radiologists, we need more radiographers, we need more chemists. Other courses shouldn't be shoved by the side thinking about just medicine and nursing. These are not the key stuffs. The hospital is not just run by nurses and doctors. We need the chemists, we need the radiologists, we need the radiographer, we need the lab attendant, we need the lab scientist, we need the anatomist, we need everybody's hand to be on deck. We need the botanist, we need the zoologist, because all these are places where we get to tap and see that we get to grow as a country and beef our healthcare system. And we need to also uphold ethical and moral standards in our educational system. The educational system is one sector that, despite how hard most well-meaning Nigerians have tried to just mind their business and study, the educational system has tried as much as possible to force down different forms and shades of corruption into their system, and it's a problem. So for the brain drain to be solved, we have human beings enough, we have human resources, and we have natural resources enough to do what we ought to do. We just need to get the right scientists and get the right philosophers to help us pontificate and point us in the right direction. And we need the right leaders to be at the helm of affairs, not thinking about snatching for power, not thinking about grabbing power, not thinking about running with whatever we want to do, but actually sitting down there with us and saying, we can do this as a people. That's the only way we can move forward as a continent and as a country, particularly as Nigerians.
What quality control measures are in place to ensure the standard of healthcare services?
There are different bodies in charge of controlling the quality of health services rendered in the country, but I tell you for free, nothing or less is actually done in this sector, because there are a whole lot of problems in the country at the moment. People have lost the cultural sense of thinking about the next man, because if you recently, as recent as December, one of the enforcement agencies went to the markets in the east and then the level of fake drinks we have been sold in the country is alarming. There are fake drugs, there are fake drinks, there are fake bottled water, there are fake food, and recently we have the Risco company saga, whereby a client, or not a client, a customer bought a tomato paste and gave a negative review and about the product, as though she never had the right to say whatever she wanted to say, in line with what actually is the content of the paste she got. And she said it was very sugary, and she was arrested. She was literally hijacked. Yeah, she gave a negative review of a product on Facebook, and she was hijacked by the law enforcement agents without actually following due process. And it's been a hitting topic in the country. And this woman is pregnant and all that, but it's not whether she's pregnant or not. Was the due process actually followed to actually sue her if she has really said anything negative? If the review is so negative and so unrealistic by the company, wouldn't they have thought about actually going the way they're supposed to go? It's a civil case. But then the police got involved, and then they get to arrest this woman. And I heard the man has also been in and about this business of, trying to dominate those who try to talk down about his company. And the whole lot of products being sold in my country, Nigeria, that are below the standard. The SON, the NAFDAC, and the guys that were supposed to really do a whole lot should actually, strengthen themselves. They should also look back to the likes of Dora Akunyedi. This was a woman who actually did a whole lot for the Nigeria health sector when she was the head managing the NAFDAC board. And we should look beyond the personal gains, because if a bad product comes into the market, and if we have the guts and we have the mind to produce substandard products and all that, and fake materials and fake goods, and we put it into the market, who is giving us the assurance that this product is not going to be our father's? Our father will not be the one to buy it, or our father's friend, or our friend's brother, or our friend's wife's children, or we just do this for seeming stupid gains. And the boards that were supposed to do this at, they have to embrace technology. This is the only way they can really go forward, but they are not really doing that also. And it's sad. It's sad that they are not doing that, and it's sad that we're still where we are, because we've lost ethical standards, we've lost our sense of morality, we've lost our sense of cultural abidance to, looking out for our brothers and sisters, because who get to buy this product we tend to bring so cheap into the market, producing without actually looking at the different quantities. I also invite these law enforcement agents and agencies and the bodies in charge of quality control to look actually at the percentage of what should be in the product that goes through industrial production, as to actually see how Nigerians are actually dying slowly without even knowing, from the tomato paste to the candy to the sweet to the Bonvitas to the milk, be it dry or be it evaporated, be it condensed, to all this stuff. We have to really look deep into this matter and get to see that, things are done in the right direction. Because one way or the other, it is our friends, the family members of our friends and family members, be they close or be they extended, be they far, that are actually dying. And it's a human being. Even if they are not our relatives, even if they are not our friends and family members, it's worth the time that these people don't die like this. And it's so sad. And if you're a law enforcement agent and you are a food control agency, or in terms of quality, and you're not actually doing your job, It just shows how you also are part of the problem, and equally how corrupt you also are, because sometimes we think corruption is about money. No, corruption extends and has a far-reaching dimension that we think about. The student who cheats in an exam is corrupt. The accountant who gets to take bribe is corrupt. The auditor who gets to play around the auditing of different account sheets is also corrupt. The politician who sits at the helm of affairs and do what he does is corrupt. The traditional worshipper who goes about killing others through diabolic means is also corrupt. The Christian who prays for his or her brother who is a corrupt politician or a corrupt leader is also corrupt. So we are all in this, and until we as a people, as Mandela would say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we can easily be burned. But we together, we can form a fist and we can fight back. I see most African leaders doing this, not actually knowing what it really means. It's a sign of togetherness. It's a sign of holding each and every person together, not the other way around. Until we do this, we're in this together, and this also needs to change.
How do you assess the impact of healthcare workers' strikes on patient outcomes?
First of all, a sector as important as the healthcare shouldn't even be thinking of allowing her members to even think of going on strike, because people fall sick every day. I remember when I collapsed in my room in Europe, I got rushed to a hospital at about 3 a.m. in the morning. I called a number. It's an emergency number. It's online. And they actually came. These workers are going on strike because that's the last resort they have. Without that, that's seemingly the language the politicians in my country get to understand. When they see everybody on the street and when they see everybody, doing one or two forms of gyrations and all that and demanding their rights, that's the only language they get to understand when strikes are being done. Though they get suppressed and all that. But like I said before, my granddad died last year, 2023, at a time where healthcare workers were on strike. And I will never forget and I will never forgive the policymakers for such poor decisions, allowing such an important group of the society to actually go on strike. It's just like saying all farmers should go on strike for producing food for 1 year. It won't look good. I know how difficult it was for us to really try to see how we could access the federal government hospital, that's the national hospital in Abuja, but to no avail, and my granddad ended up in a private hospital and to an exorbitant medical bill. And despite how my family tried to navigate that period, it was still an amount of money wasted that was not supposed to be wasted if the healthcare workers were not on strike. So the healthcare workers should go on strike, but they should also look beyond, finance sometimes. But for how long can you sustain such argument logically that they should just continually go to work and not get paid? No, it shouldn't be. They should get paid, and the leaders of any well-meaning country should always think about how to better all forms of infrastructure and put things in place. And until that is done, I think there will be no shortage of strikes by medical doctors. And the health cases of different persons, just like my granddad's own got worse in that period, would also get worse. And, people will die and health situations will go bad. And there's also not even enough sensitization of people as to what their health status even look like. Some persons don't even know what their blood group looks like until they fall so ill. And all this is also because of the type of policies and how health has also been. And this is where the churches come up, religious leaders and all that, for things that can be treated with malaria, they tell you it's one spiritual problem or the other. They extort you of the different forms and the different amount of money you tend to have. You see a whole lot of bad kind of religion, especially the Christian religion practiced in my part of the world, Nigeria, and it's so sad. I'm not against, as many who want to be as religious as they can be, but if I can take tablets and get well, and why should I be going to a church to get my healing? If the men of God and the women of God in Nigeria think that they are so powerful and they are so gifted with the gift of healing and all that, they shouldn't be in churches. They should be in hospitals and homes for the sick and trying to bring about healing. They shouldn't be printing billboards and asking people to come to them for healing and all that. Go meet the people. Go meet the sick people. The sick people are not supposed to come to church. The sick person should be in the hospital. Sick person should be seeking medical attention. God has given us gifts. The same way the pastor flies a private jet or flies a jet, so also is the medical doctor gifted in that particular field. And I see different religious sects saying you shouldn't do that blood transfusion, you shouldn't accept blood, you shouldn't give blood, you shouldn't do a whole lot of other things. And it's so sad. And religious organizations and bodies that get to advise people not to seek medical attentions are so heretical and so stupid to really go by in the first place. I just think we as a people can do better. We as a country can help ourselves.
What are the main barriers to accessing healthcare for an average Nigerian?
The main barriers for accessing average healthcare in Nigeria, first of all, is the inavailability of basic amenities such as hospitals, such as pharmacies, such as indigenous pharmaceutical companies that get to make provisions and provide for the medications and healthcare services and apparatus needed by the people. Second, it's also lack of information as to what health is about. It still stems from religious underpinnings. People have been told that if they are sick, they should first of all go to the church before they go to the hospital. That's if I thought they're ever going to go to the hospital. Another is the low income rate of the average Nigerian, which means whatever they earn, even as a minimum wage, cannot even run a full scan of their body system. So what an average Nigerian will earn as a minimum wage, if he falls sick, cannot even take him through the process of being registered as a sick person in a Nigerian hospital. That's even if that's a government hospital. We're not even talking now of a private hospital. An average Nigerian cannot afford a surgery. An average Nigerian cannot afford basic healthcare system. An average Nigerian cannot afford basic health care. And there need to be a serious amount of sensitization on the part of the people. There have to be a whole lot being done on the part of the government in trying to see that people are sensitized and people are educated as to why they need to really assess and check their health status more often. If somebody is earning less than 40,000 naira in Nigeria, you don't expect such a person to always go to the hospital to go check himself. And until the healthcare system and then the insurance scheme becomes so basic that people can just walk up to walk up to a hospital and then get their vitals checked, and at little or no cost, there will always be deficiency in the outcome of the health status and the quality of health of the average Nigerian. Even of the middle class Nigerian, healthcare is still very expensive. And since we have very few institutions that get to provide basic healthcare, if you go to a place like UCH, Ibadan, you come to understand what I am saying. People have to come for as early as 5 a.m. in the morning to queue up just to get cards and just to get appointment slots to get to see a doctor. You get to also see this in the National Hospital in Abuja. I say this because I have first-hand experience of these hospitals. These are places that look like, these are places for the Nigerian system or the Nigerian government to be the best places to sort for healthcare challenge. You have Lut in Lagos, and it's not doing so much. You have UCTH in Calabar, and you have National Orthopedic Hospital in Enugu and all that, and more can be done and more has not been done. And for the number of people, over 220 million people, we are underproducing, we are underbuilding. And it's not just also about building, it's also building in the right direction. How are houses linked to hospitals? How are police stations linked to houses? How are the roads being built? All these things have to come in the grand scheme of things while planning the town and all that. It's not about erecting structures here and there. It's about how well are structures erected and not how many structures are erected, and what is also the quality, what is the lifespan, how can this last. These are all the things we talk about, and these are all the things that still yet don't prick the conscience of our leaders and our policy makers. And also the private sector should also come in place, but how does an average Nigerian want to invest in such sectors that will not bring about returns? Give it what you have to say. It's a business, it's an investment, and people need to get their return back from such medical systems, and it's not really helping.
How is the healthcare system addressing the needs of vulnerable populations, especially in rural areas?
The healthcare system in rural areas remain a sad tale. We're talking about people who live in places like Ibadan, people who live in places like Lagos, people who live in places like Calabar, people who live in places like Abuja, not being able to access adequate health care services. What will be the reality of those living in rural areas, places where the likes of my mom resides and do her business, places where the likes of my friends' parents get to live also. They're the mercy of God, and you know how somebody's situation is so bad when the person has to be on the side where the person has to say, God, into your hands I commend my spirit. You know what happened to Jesus when he said that? He died. So also is the situation of those in the rural areas. Those people are being deprived of what it takes to be human in the 21st century, from network on their phones to the basic amenities like running water and then the likes of stuff like that, and all that. And it doesn't really add up. It doesn't really make sense. So sad, so annoying. I gave an instance of my younger sister Nkere, who used to be very sickly when she was growing up in the late 2000. And I gave an instance of my sister Nkere, who used to be very sickly when she was still a young girl. This is between 2007, 2008, 2009, even up to 2010. And how it was difficult for us to really see a doctor. We go to a federal government hospital or a state facility and the doctors are not there. The nurses, sometimes we get to see auxiliary nurses and nurses who need improvement in whatever they are doing. And these personnel as reduced or as deficient as their health knowledge remain, they remain heroes to a whole lot of persons. Most persons would have died if not for the likes of these nurses who are not exposed to technological changes and all that, and who can do better if they are given the opportunity, because they, as well as their colleagues who do better and strive better in better climes, would have done better if they are given the right tools and all that. So the situation of those in the rural area remains a call for all of us to actually think about.
What percentage of the Nigerian population is covered by health insurance?
I cannot give statistically the number of those covered by the National Health Insurance Scheme, but I can tell you a whole lot of persons still don't know about the National Health Insurance Scheme, and those who do still find it difficult to get either registered, get enrolled, or get their registration validated and actually being followed through. But it's a scheme that is to be commended in its own little way of seeing that health is actually advanced and guided against all odds in the country. And I give it to them for the little they have done, but they have to do more.
What are the most pressing public health challenges facing Nigeria today?
Attitude of doctors and nurses, probably due to fatigue, probably due to overlabor. You get to find these health workers, when you go to see them, they behave like gods, and some of them get to behave like you are doing them a favor by falling sick. That's not the case. One of the challenges also facing that sector, one of the challenges facing the sector is provision of basic amenity. These things are not so much. These things are just revolving around a whole lot of things. There's lack of invention, there's lack of innovation, there's lack of incorporating technology in the healthcare sector of the country, and it's not really looking good. And we can do better, we can do good, but we don't do so. And it's sad and it's bad, and we can do better, but we have to fund, like I've said before, infrastructure. We have to fund research centers. We have to train scientists to think about our peculiar problems. We have to stop looking to the West for AIDS and all that. We can do this on our own. Most of the resources that is being used abroad were also taken out of Africa in recent times, and up until now, we still have such raw materials being taken out in different fleets of different forms of shipment and different cargoes. And our leaders do little or nothing. I think laws should be put in place to see that restrictions are given as to how these raw materials are to be harvested, not just by outsiders, by us within it. It's still very, very abnormal that I can just think of probably going to China and going to the forest to mine some mineral resources that will aid in healthcare system and all that. But we see we as Africans selling our country and selling our continent again to new forms of colonizers. Germany is there scrambling for the south. China is there in the east as well as in the west. America is doing its own. America has always been there. America is like our bad uncle, and not our uncle, our bad business partner. The Britain is also there, and we see what happens in the near future. We look up to Senegal, tell us what to do.
How did the COVID-19 pandemic highlight the weaknesses in the Nigerian healthcare system?
During the pandemic, we could see how we were relying solely on the West to get vaccinations, and the West didn't owe us anything. If the pandemic did anything to the African people, it brought about the vulnerability of our health sector, and also showed how we could improvise in actually maintaining our health. I tell you, if the pandemic had broke out of the continent of Africa, I tell you for free, a whole lot of persons would have died. It's just the obvious truth. Our healthcare system across the continent, to start with, it's very, very weak. And the pandemic should call our government organizations to action. The African Union should begin to think about collaboration. If they have not already started doing that, it's already late. We cannot be waiting for the West for guns to kill our brothers and sisters. We cannot be waiting for them to give us ammunition to beef up our security system. We cannot be waiting for them to send us computers at all times to get installed in different places of office. And we are being too dependent on these guys, sitting on mineral resources, sitting on human resources, and still here producing little. We're just being lazy for no reason, and we can get better. We can do better as a people. We can do better as a world, and until we do that, nobody is coming to save the world anytime soon. We are the only ones that will save the world, and if we don't do that, we all die, and we all run into the risk of being extinct. And the COVID-19 did actually showed how vulnerable we are as a people and how vulnerable we are as a continent in terms of our health security, and it shouldn't be taken lightly. And we should be investing in our students, our doctors, our nurses right now, but we're not doing so, and we're really late in the project, and we are like 50 years behind when we should be where the rest of the world is at the moment. And that's what I have to say about that.
How does political instability and corruption impact healthcare policy and governance?
An injustice in a particular place remains an injustice everywhere. The political instability of the country has seen to it that each project cannot be followed the way each government wants to do so. So that you find a bunch of politicians who have different ideologies from the next, having a lack of continuity in terms of political plans and in terms of political continuity of ideas and all that. Our ideas, sometimes given by most of our politicians, are short-lived. So that when a politician leaves office, the next set of politicians come up with different plans. They don't continue. It's as if they're fighting. What are they fighting about? It's all for the growth of the people. We need to really think deep, and we really need to think in terms of ideologies, because forget whatever you've been told. Ideas change the world. Ideas rule the world. Whatever we are today is a product of the ideas we've either accepted or the ideas we've rejected. Let nobody deceive you. Don't be deceived. Ideas rule the world. And it is only in this we can actually move forward. It is only in this we can grow. Without this, we're heading nowhere as a people. The political instability of the country where I come from, Nigeria, has seen to it that politicians are very, very unstable. They make exorbitant promises too big for them to keep, and they know, and we also know their line, but there's a way we've just come to have this Orwellian double thinking within ourselves and within our system, and we just accept this, and we we flow with this, and until we become politically stable, until we say this political party, the PDP, this is the ideology, until we say the Labour Party, this is the ideology, until we say the APC, this is the ideology, until we say this, the different political parties and their different ideologies, and we can recognize and can align with them, just like those in the West get to say, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative, I'm a liberal, and until we get to that point where we can have ideologies that govern us, the political parties are seemingly the same. Because I remember saying at some point that those guys who came off of the benevolence of the integrity of Mr. Peter Obi from the Labour Party in the just concluded elections of Nigeria last year are not better off, because they are still, getting the SUVs as other lawmakers are getting. They are still participating in whatsoever debauchery the different system of government, the different lawmakers get to do. They still know about the budget padding and they keep quiet. They still know about all the forms of corruption that go on and about government, and then they keep quiet. And so the different political parties in Nigeria as we speak at the moment are just different politicians who belong to different political parties who are there for the same thing. And nothing will work until we all come together. And so to conclude, I reflect on the words of D.K. Chukwumerije in his poem, Fix the Politics. He ends by saying, until we elect leaders with a heart for selfless service, no tribe, no tongue, just commitment to build a functional nation that fills us all with pride. Until we elect men and women with a heart for selfless service, no region, no religion, just commitment to nation. Until we elect them, we labor in vain. D.K. Chukwumerije is not advocating that leaders to be elected shouldn't come from a place, shouldn't come from a tribe, shouldn't come from different forms of religions and all that. He's just saying leaders who will not put religion first, leaders who will not put tribalism first, leaders who will not put their family first ahead of every other person are those we should be thinking of electing. And until we do this, we as a country labor in vain, and we continue to dance naked in the market square with our sicknesses and with our ill health and all that. And I hope one day, Nigeria would rise to become the giant of Africa it actually is supposed to be. And until then, I don't really see anything to be proud of the healthcare system in the country, save for the little punctuations and dots of advancement being carried out by those who are against all odds, doctors and nurses who are against all odds, who are against the limitations of the services being provided for them. Strive to actually deliver healthcare services for the people. To such men and women who refuse to leave the country because of their strong level of patriotism, to men like Dele Farotimi, to people like D.K. Chukwumerije, to people like my mother who sit down there and hope that it gets better. May the future be kind.
What legislative measures are being considered to improve the healthcare system?
We'll talk in the second talk. Let's wrap it here. We'll talk about the other areas later.
Thank you for granting us a chance to talk to you. Thank you for stopping by to watch Boring Conversations. If you've not subscribed to our channel here, please do so. Please share this video with your family members, share these videos with your colleagues, share these videos with your friends, and I hope it comes to inspire you and touch you and spark a conversation we ought to be having now into the future. Thank you for watching this video to the end. The next part of this video will be posted a few days from now. Please do well to check our channel then to get to continue the particular video and then to continue the particular line of thought also. It has been a pleasure for us to produce content for you for your listening pleasure. I hope I hope you come to find our channel useful and inspiring.